luck on your side. There's some health luck on your side. And
welcome everyone to number 59 episode of my
that they're up against the
playlist of live streams.
Even with an injured CP3, but you caught him when they'd only play 10 games together. So I do feel like that could be a different story next season. Now, is it definitely going to be? I don't know. Probably not. My money might still be on Denver after getting it done. But it's probably going to look a little different in Phoenix after them playing an entire season together by the time they get to a postseason. That's all I mean. It's those types of factors moving forward, because it's not just about Denver and how good they are. I don't see anything changing on that front next season. What I see maybe changing is the competition around Denver. And it's just not easy to get to and win in NBA Finals.
Without question. And to your other point earlier about coaching in the finals, look at the last three champions in the NBA. Denver, year before that Golden State, year before that Milwaukee. What do they all have in common? Patience. Patience. They built around their stars. They had coaches who had been around for a while. They didn't panic like the Sixers or the Nets or any of these teams who just immediately blow it all up or make massive trades or massive firings when things don't go their way. They stayed the course, and they were rewarded for doing that.
Milwaukee not patient anymore, though. So we will see.
No, they are not.
How that look. They're not patient anymore. It's interesting how those things change. But I do think this NBA Finals, these two teams, it was a testament to some of that patience and a testament to that job security at the head coaching position. Coming up next, how comparable are the Nuggets to the early days of the Warriors dynasty? We'll get into it. Joe and Amber's on ESPN Radio.
Joe and Amber, the podcast.
This episode is brought to you by Jack Link's Doritos and Flamin' Hot and their epic new snack mashups. Give your taste buds a rush of boldness with Jack Link's Doritos Spicy Sweet Chili flavor, and then dial up the heat with Jack Link's Flamin' Hot flavor. When flavors this bold come together, a new taste experience is born. Experience the next dimension of snacking with Jack Link's Doritos and Flamin' Hot.
It's time for a reality check with Intel. Across social media and the news, deepfake videos are everywhere now. That's why Intel created the world's first real-time deepfake detection platform. Powered by fake capture technology and Intel Xeon processors, this innovative AI solution can instantly distinguish real humans from fakes with 96% accuracy. Now, more than ever, the world needs a new standard of truth. Learn more at intel.com/deepfake.
Joe and Amber's on ESPN Radio. All you have to do is tell your smart speakers to play ESPN Radio to listen to us. It is that simple. Find him on social at Joe Fortenbaugh. You can find me as well at Amber W Sports. Let's bring in some help with the conversation to try to put a bow here on the NBA season. ESPN senior writer Andre Snelling is joining us here. Andre, thanks so much for joining us. Does Nikola Jokic actually like winning NBA titles? What's your takeaway from last night?
Well, first of all, Amber, I'm so sorry. I'm a Bengals fan. When we lost to the Rams a couple years ago, if they would have asked me to host a 3-hour show talking about it the next day, I might have cried. So, you were stronger. You're stronger than I am.
I'm going to jump in here. This is not Miami local sports talk radio. We don't need to apologize. You can come on and say whatever you like, Mr.
I'm like Jokic today. There's sometimes my job sucks. A job is still a job. Today would be one of those days. I appreciate Dre for recognizing it.
Right. As far as Jokic goes, I love his interviews. It's been weeks now because every time he does something that no one's ever done before, they say, well, how did you feel when you got that crazy triple-double? How did you feel when you did something that nobody since Wilt has done? His answer is always, I don't care. I don't care. I play basketball. So now it's you just won the championship. Instead of I'm going to Disney World, it's I don't care. I go home now. So I love that he's so laid back about it, and I feel like that kind of even keelness probably helps the team moving forward because your main player is so calm and so matter of fact about everything. It's kind of hard for anybody else to get too caught up in the moment when it's like, okay, well, look at Nikola over there. He's racing his horses, so I guess I should be calm myself.
So we had this discussion in the last segment about the path the Nuggets had to the championship. They went 16-4 over 20 games. Minnesota, Phoenix, the Lakers, and the Heat. There's a thought process that maybe wasn't the most.
Let's go!
Let's skip through that.
Caden Ellis with a recovery.
Face would have been good enough to beat them now that we've seen how good they really are.
So here's the thing. I'm not an asterisk guy. You know, I wasn't one that said, oh, the Lakers, it was a bubble championship. Like, if you won the championship, that means you are the champion. So that's kind of a full stop. But as far as when you start trying to analyze and say, okay, well, how would this team do moving forward, or how would this team compare with other teams historically, I think it's fair to evaluate the level of competition. As far as teams that could have given them trouble, I think the list probably is the 3 top seeds in the East that didn't make it if they were healthy. Because Jokic had such an advantage just physically over every center that he faced in this postseason run. You know, Anthony Davis is an excellent defensive center, and so is Bam Adebayo, but they're just too slim. You know, when the Lakers were able to beat the Nuggets a few years ago, they had Dwight Howard to bang with Jokic. You know, they didn't have that this year. So I think that it would have been interesting to see him battle Embiid. It would have been interesting to see him battle that big Bucks front line. Even the Celtics, you know,
nice
with
job.
Horford and the Time Lord could have made life more interesting for him. I don't know if they would have won, but I would have liked to have seen some of those healthy matchups.
ESPN senior writer Andre Snelling's joining us here on Joe and Amber. Last night hurt, obviously, for me. But one of the reasons I was saying that it hurt so much, Andre, was because last night wasn't by any means the Nuggets' best performance. It almost felt like to me it would have hurt less had Jokic just been like, you know, another 45-point triple-double from Jokic where he felt unstoppable, and then I would have thrown up my arms in defeat. There's nothing you can do. That wasn't at all how Denver played last night. It felt like Miami was really effective defensively against Denver, by far the best in terms of the postseason of anybody disrupting Denver defensively, and yet the Heat just could not, for the life of them, find the offense. What did you make of that last night from them?
I think everything with the Heat always starts and ends with Jimmy Butler, right? And I've been tracking this for weeks. I'm sure I'm not the only one, but Jimmy Butler hasn't been the same since he hurt his ankle against the Knicks in Game 1. It's evident, and it seems that he doesn't want to speak on it. He's not the type of guy that would, you know, try to make an excuse. But the man was averaging almost 39 points a game in those first 5 playoff games against the Bucks, a really good defense. And then since then, he averaged under 20, like 23 point something, shooting 41, 42% from the field. I was watching that game last night. He had no legs, like none. And for the Heat offense to work, it's Jimmy Butler to threaten the opposing team, and then that opens things up for the shooters. Well, against the Nuggets in this series, Butler couldn't threaten them enough to open up those shooters, and so the Nuggets could stay home more on shooters, and they were guys that needed someone
Local
to create
trash
shots
people.
for them. So the play that epitomized it for me was with 24 seconds left, and it's like a 2-point game, and Jimmy Butler drives directly to the front of the rim, and Nikola Jokic is there, but Jokic cannot jump. Everybody knows this. Jimmy Butler would normally try to dunk it on him. Instead, he's like, oh, I better, you know, try to kick it out, and he ends up throwing it away for a turnover. So, you know, I agree the Nuggets didn't play their best game, but the Heat had no chance if they couldn't get at least a couple games out of quote-unquote Jimmy Butler, and I think physically Jimmy just was not in the building.
Andre, as we look ahead to next season and what it's going to mean for Denver and how formidable they can be coming off a championship, teams go one of 2 ways. Some get complacent, some are hungry for even more. What do you think about them next year? What do you think the biggest threat in the West is going to be?
I like the Nuggets for the fact that they do have, we talked about Jokic's attitude. We haven't talked about Jamal Murray. He's becoming one of my favorite players in the league because he's so humble and he steps up in the big moments, and he just feels like the kind of guy that, along with Jokic, would want this to be the start of something bigger. And I guess along with Coach Michael Malone, right? He was already talking kind of dynasty next championship in the post-game press conference last night. So I feel like the Nuggets, plus the fact that all 6 of their top 5 players, all 6 of their top players are in their mid-20s, like from 24 to 29. And that, of course, that's counting Brown, who may or may not be there. but most of their guys are under contract for multiple years. So they have the core to be a team that can compete for championships for a long time. And I feel like they have the fewest question marks among the potential contenders. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that once the season starts, that'll be the case. You know, we don't know what's going to happen in Milwaukee with them retaining their free agents. We don't know what's going to happen with Philadelphia and James Harden. We don't know what's going to happen with the Celtics and Jaylen Brown. You know, you can go down the list. We don't know what's going to happen with the Lakers. Are they going to try to run it back or bring in another big player? You know, it goes on and on. So I feel like the Nuggets are set up to compete at a high level next season. Whether or not they'll be the favorite once the season starts, I kind of need to see what moves are made this offseason.
Aww.
Senior writer Andre Snelling's joining us here on Joe and Amber. You can't see my screen, obviously, in front of me here, Andre. But for you and the listening audience, James Steele sometimes writes on my screen that we all share question suggestions. And his question suggestion for you is Heat stuff, blah, blah, blah. Because James Steele cannot wait for me to never utter another word about the Miami Heat this summer. Joke's on you, James. I'm going to, because I imagine, Andre, that we're going to be talking about the Heat even this offseason. They've been to 2 NBA titles here in Jimmy's run. They've won they've been to 3 Eastern Conference title games as well. Yet it doesn't
Amber,
feel like they.
Damian Lillard.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, take it from there. I mean, that's where I'm going with it.
Really? Juszczyk outran me for a touchdown?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that Damian Lillard jumped into a conversation where he says, oh, I'd love to play for the Heat, and Bam Adebayo's my dog. Dame is so famously loyal to the Trailblazers that it sounded kind of funny to hear him talking openly about another team. But it kind of feels like
Really?
could be on the wall this year with
Are you
they
fucking
have another
serious right
overall
now?
draft pick. It looks like they might have a chance at Scoot Henderson, who plays in a way that would be difficult, I think, for him and Dame to coexist. And the rest of that team is young, so maybe the Trailblazers finally and the Heat.
This sucks.
They could put together a Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson and 3 first-round draft pick type package and see if that's enough for the Trailblazers.
I hate starting slow, man. This shit pisses me off.
But if it is, then yeah, obviously, if there's a player in the NBA that epitomizes quote-unquote Heat culture that doesn't play for the Heat, it's Dame Lillard. And oh, by the way, he's also one of the best scorers that the NBA's ever seen.
Ooh, and boy, do we need that scoring. Andre Snelling's ESPN senior writer. Thanks, Dre.
Thanks for having me.
A deal.
The question always becomes, though, to get a player like Lillard, what are you going to give up? Because Phoenix gave up everything for Durant, and they had no depth. So if you acquire Lillard, great, you have another scorer, but how many of your depth options are gone?
Well, the good thing for Miami Heat is they grow on trees for that franchise. Yeah. I mean, that's the reality of the situation, right? Like,
what?
I don't know if you're that franchise, if you're as worried about depth as long as you don't have to give up Jimmy, you don't have to give up Bam. And Damian Lillard made it very clear that one of the reasons he would want to come to Miami is because Bam is his boy. So I'm imagining if you're Damian Lillard, you wouldn't want to being included in that deal. So what does that deal look like? It would have to look like something like Tyler Hero, Kyle Lowry if they're interested, Nikola Jokic, the draft pick for the Heat from this past draft, the 18th pick in the 2023 draft. They've got a first rounder in the 2027 draft they could move. They've got multiple second rounders in the next few drafts that they could throw in there as well. I think it would have to look like something like that.
I also think we have to start asking the question if playoff Jimmy's only kind of like first half.
Damn it.
Because it seems like the last 2 times we've seen playoff Jimmy make a run of the finals, it really starts to fall apart towards the end.
Well, and he's exhausted. And maybe it's because he does have to do too much for the first half of their postseason run. I mean, I think it is a fair question to ask. I don't think that it's necessarily Jimmy, anything wrong particularly with Jimmy somehow tapering off or not caring enough. I don't think anybody wants an NBA title more than Jimmy Butler. But I do wonder if it's just too much on him. Another superstar like a Damian Lillard that can provide some scoring relief there would certainly take some of that onus off Jimmy. Coming up next here on Joe and Amber. It took almost 50 years for the Denver Nuggets to win a title. But there's a team tonight that could win it in less than a decade. We will get into that. Another South Florida team setting themselves up for heartbreak. Joe and Amber is on ESPN Radio.
Joe and Amber, the podcast.
This episode is brought to you by Azo. This is for my listeners with a vagina. Ever felt off balance down there? Introducing Azo Vaginal Health Products.
Why did I do that?
Complete feminine balance helps restore the balance of good bacteria. And if you want protection from yeast and urinary tract issues, try Azo Dual Protection. Save 20% with the promo code PODCAST at azoproducts.com. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any...
Damn it!
16 years from today, Greg Gerstner will finally land the perfect cannonball. Epic splash. Unsuspecting friends. A work of art only possible because Greg is already meeting all these same people at AARP volunteer and community events that keep him active and involved and help make sure his happiness lives as long as he does. That's why the younger you are, the more you need AARP. Learn more at aarp.org/local.
This episode is brought to you by Sleep Number. No matter who you are, you want to reach your full potential. And when you sleep on a Sleep Number smart bed, you're finally harnessing your unique potential every night.
Really?
No matter what each night brings. Sleep next level.
Wow, thank you. Thank you.
With a smart bed that can perform as well as you. And now get special financing for a limited time on the new next-gen Sleep Number smart beds. Only at Sleep Number stores or sleepnumber.com.
Still mad I threw
See
another
store for
pick.
details.
Just about 12 minutes, the puck will drop in Stanley Cup Finals Game 5 between the Florida Panthers and the Las Vegas Golden Knights. This should be a very emotional series for me and Joe. He's in Vegas, I'm the South Florida girl, and yet we've hardly had much banter about this series, another series where the South Florida team finds itself down 3-1. We will get into that series as we head into that game in just a moment, but first, Joe's got some advice.
Pizza money alert.
Pizza, pizza!
All right, let's handle the first.
Let's go, Jason!
This up was last Wednesday, so we had some Nuggets futures we had to account for. We had all our last bets. So the last
And he's in the zone.
to square 5-2, but only up 0.75 units. That's what an idiot I am for doubling up on Josh Taylor Saturday night. Thank you very much for getting beat up in that fight. So overall, the show is 139 wins, 131 defeats, 1 push, plus 8.47 units. Vegas on the puck line tonight, it's plus 122 over the Panthers. That means they win by 2 or more goals. It's a gut play. This town is ready to explode. They're trying to finish the job they started 6 years ago when they went to the Stanley Cup Final in their first year of existence. The building is going to be rocking. When Vegas wins, they tend to win by 2 or more goals, 10 of 15 playoff games by 2 or more goals. To be honest, there's a case to be made that this should have been a sweep because Game 3, the Knights dominated for 57 minutes and then got caught late. So be it. They bounced back in Game 4, and now they handle their business tonight. Do-or-die game for the Panthers, which means you got to get the netminder out even earlier than normal late in the game if you're down by 1 goal, which helps us with the empty netter. Pizza money number 2. Knights, puck line, plus 122 over Florida.
Not going to be an easy feat for the Florida Panthers. Not going to be an easy feat because they're trying to claw their way back from a 3-1 deficit, something that's only happened on this stage one other time in NHL history. But this team has done it on a low.
Let's go.
Just did it against the Boston Bruins, so they certainly will be confident, I would imagine, in them.
Got my momentum bar back. Let's go. And I'm back in this game. Justin Evans for the from recovery for a tutty.
He is out of the lineup tonight. That ain't going to be good for them to not have their 25-year-old left winger who's tied for the postseason lead with 24 points. Yeah, shares third place with 11 goals and finds himself out of the lineup for a do-or-die game for the Florida Panthers. So that's not good news. They haven't gotten.
Oh, we're tied. I've come back to tie the game.
Florida Panther side, and then you mentioned it, the way that the Golden Knights have been winning games, they're just monstrous, and they just score so many goals. I'm trying to find the numbers. I'm trying to rush to find the numbers because I had the stats in front of me earlier. I'll find it in a second, where the way that they've been playing, when they go up, when they score something like 3 or 4 goals, like it's totally a wrap for the Vegas Golden Knights. They've just been unstoppable when their offense.
Spoiler, they would score 9 goals, setting an NHL Stanley Cup championship clinching record.
That has not been easy for the Panthers in this series.
So the history that Vegas is potentially standing on right now, it's wild. And just being out here, there was a flyover with the Jets. The entire town is buzzing. Practices that our kids have are canceled. Everybody's watching this. Like it is really, if you have no idea, and I can completely understand people not coming to Vegas and paying attention to hockey, I get it. But to try to comprehend what this team means to this city is very difficult to try to convey. You have your windows open tonight, you're in your backyard, you will hear everyone in the neighborhood screaming with this game. It is a hockey team. Hockey doesn't rate anywhere near the other pro sports in this country. But in this town, it is everything. The license plates, the memorabilia, the way people build their schedules around it, the kids who have taken up skating and playing hockey. You go back 6 years from this day, we didn't have hockey, we didn't have the Raiders, we didn't have the Aces, we didn't have the Lights FC soccer team. And it was looked upon as something that was tawdry. The idea of professional sports coming to this town, the gambling component, the integrity component, and now 6 years later, the Knights are in their second Stanley Cup Final. The Aces just won the WNBA championship. The NFL is here. Formula One's coming this year. The Super Bowl's here next year. It is wild, the transformation that's taken place here. So if you're ever in town and you have an opportunity to even come see your own team play against the Knights, highly recommend it. It's one of the best shows in town because it is not just a standard show up. Some people like hockey and the rest of the town doesn't care. Everyone lives and breathes this stuff.
And it's in part because of the way that they play hockey, that offensive juggernaut, like I said. So they're very fun to watch, not so much for Florida Panthers fans. In this game, they've outscored opponents 20.
Yeah, I have to deal with the Vegas Golden Knights being an LA Kings fan, and every damn year we always play them and we always struggle. It's annoying.
If you like offense, then you will like the Las Vegas Golden Knights. I don't have much hope for the Florida Panthers tonight. And just what a bummer, because you just mentioned all the great things about Vegas and made Vegas sound like the center of the sports universe. 48 hours ago, I was feeling like Miami was the center of the sports universe, in part because you had the Heat and you had the Florida Panthers in these finals. And now, unfortunately for South Florida, it feels like they're going to be on the losing end of both of those equations. And not just on the losing end, but the way in which they're going to lose both of these series, or it feels like that anyways. Hopefully the Florida Panthers can give the Miami
No!
there, but they lose in game.
How did I get knocked out of the zone? The ball didn't even come towards my hands. That's bullshit.
NBA Finals. What a disappointment after two incredible runs.
Miami, the city of Philadelphia, welcomes you with open arms. I think it's worse to lose a Super Bowl and a World Series than it is to lose the NBA Finals and the Stanley Cup Final. That's just me. But two cities that can commiserate together, what a hell of a year for those two.
Yeah. Maybe worse. I don't know. I would take the Dolphins getting to a Super Bowl or, sniffing a Super Bowl or getting a couple postseason wins. Like, I would take that any day of
Crossing routes
so
always beat.
that Super Bowl if you give me the opportunity, because it's been so darn long since I've seen a Super Bowl or the Dolphins anywhere near it. NBA titles, I've seen those a lot more recently. So from that perspective, maybe it's a little bit flawed the way things have gone in South Florida between those two franchises. Coming up next, what's next for the Miami Heat? We'll go back to the NBA. Joe and Amber is on ESPN Radio.
Joe and Amber, the podcast.
FX's hit series The Bear returns.
I'm opening a restaurant. I go hard every day.
The show the critics call the most anticipated new season on TV.
We have equipment that works. That's a great start, everybody. 0.
This place is going to take 6 months to open.
6 months?
That's being
what? Confident?
Cocky. Crazy.
FX's The Bear. All episodes streaming June 27th. Only on Hulu.
there. Paul get hurt. And then every champion at every turn for some reason other than another. Wasn't fair when Kevin Durant joined the Warriors. LeBron won it in a bubble. Milwaukee watched Chris Paul get hurt. And then whatever last year was, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum couldn't handle the big spot. And then Miami didn't have a lot of scoring. Like, we do this everywhere. We do it at every
I'm not trying to tear
single
them
turn.
down, but I mean, the reality is...
I'm not coming at you for this. I
The
thought
reality,
you made a good point by bringing it up. Too many other people are doing that.
But
wait for a turnover. So, you know,
As a teacher, you love to hear this. But sometimes you just like to hear this.
Hey.
ATT.com.
when I have to show up the next day and spend the entire show talking about the heartbreak I suffered the night before, it sucks a little bit.
Let me ask you a question based on something you said earlier in the show. As bad as this is, and it is tough to go through, the idea that it was Denver that beat you, a relatively likable team, a fan base that had never won a championship, you know, all that stuff. You laid it out that it could have been a lot worse. It got me thinking, who would have been the worst to lose to? Like, who are the absolute worst fan bases to lose to? As a Miami fan, what would have been worse? LeBron, the Warriors? I know you're not a very big Warriors fan.
Right. I can't stand the Warriors. I want that dynasty to be over. I'm just tired of them. And the whole likability of Steph Curry, with all the bleep talking he does, and everybody just gives him a pass on it because he seems likable over the years, whatever. It became a team that I went from originally liking to hating, like a lot of dynasties, right? So that would be a bad one because I want that era to be over. I'm not that emotional about the Warriors, though. Losing to the Lakers in 2020 super sucked. Now, given it was under weird circumstances in the bubble, but that sucked because it gave LeBron a title in LA, something I didn't want LeBron really to accomplish. I have a weird relationship with LeBron, though, because obviously I love LeBron for what he did in those years in Miami, and then I had a lot of anger towards LeBron for leaving and going and winning a title in Cleveland. I didn't necessarily want him to have the success, but I certainly didn't want the success in LA to come at our expense. So that sucked. That sucked worse than this Nuggets team, but that's also already been done.
That's messed up that guy brought you multiple titles, and then you rank him as one of the worst people to lose to. Like, there are plenty of people that have done nothing, and that's a guy that's done a lot.
It's completely reasonable. Like you know, it's like an ex-boyfriend. You know, I
Yeah.
had ex-boyfriends that were great. We had a great run. While we had
Damn
a
it.
run, I don't want you to go do better in life than me. Like, that whole thing, like, oh, I hope you're all I want you to be happy in life, don't get me wrong, but I don't need you to be knocking it out of the park. And happy. She doesn't need to be better than me, whoever you end up having that nice little life with, okay? We don't need to eclipse Amber Wilson with whoever we end up settling down with the future. That's how I feel here. We had a hell of a run, me and LeBron, during those years that he was in Miami. I don't need him to go do it better in Cleveland and end the drought there, or go do it in Los Angeles. Who needs to see that in their life?
Are you fucking serious?
Lots of process there. Like, no, I'm not rooting against my exes.
Are you serious right now? I'm struggling with Trey Lance.
It wouldn't be the end of the world, but if they did...
I wish them well, if any of them are listening. I just don't want her to be better than me, you know? Shoot down
you
a
know,
little.
You're doing all right yourself? Jeez.
Show Amber's presented by Progressive Insurance. Progressive Commercial Insurance flexes your business needs, from quick repairs to adjustable coverages and even payment options. Progressive Commercial makes it easy to get what you need.
Damn it.
As little as
Greg.
at progressivecommercial.com. LeBron has not done it better since he left the Heat, because he's only done it one in each place he has visited since. I would not want him to have added to his time in Los Angeles with another ring, so that one would have been more annoying than losing to the Nuggets. I don't know. I mean, it's weird when you're talking out of conference. Like, obviously in the East, I mean, forget about it. There's multiple teams in the East that I hate, But when you're talking about actually making it to an NBA Finals, losing to a team in the Western Conference, not that many teams in the West that I hate, frankly. The Denver Nuggets, though, them ending their drought, I do think that portion of this story makes it a little bit easier. They've waited a really long time. That's a very good fan base. They've waited a really long time for that championship.
How about the run Stan Kroenke's on? He owns the Rams. He just got a Super Bowl. He owns the Avalanche. They won the Stanley Cup Final last year. He owns the Nuggets. He just got an NBA title. And I believe there's another team in, I don't want to say minor league baseball, but maybe it's soccer, lacrosse. I apologize for not having this, that he won the title with as well. Like, Kroenke's on a heater right now, an absolute heater. And you see him when he does interviews, it's amazing. He leans all the way in. It's like he doesn't realize the microphone is there for him to speak into. He leans his head right past the microphone, right into the reporter's ear, because I can relate to that. Old guys like myself, we can't hear anything. And our way to respond is not to speak into your microphone. It's to get as close as we can and yell in your face, because we have to believe we're getting our point across.
He was yelling into Lisa Salter's ear at that championship celebration there for the Denver Nuggets. It has been a good time. Do you want your exes to do better than you, Joe? Is that a weird take? Like, you want your exes to do better than you? I know we're supposed to be talking about the future of the Miami Heat right now, but
this is going to sound weird. But I don't actually have any exes. They all think we're still together. I just drift off into the sunset.
That's the way to do it. That must
No, my boy Taysom is
really hope she did not.
for 35.
That would be that's going to be a conversation when you get home. Fortunately, I don't think either of our spouses bother to tune in to our show.
Better things to do.
Very supportive here of us on Joe and Amber. We do appreciate you all tuning in, though, to Joe and Amber here on ESPN Radio. Andre Iguodala, he tunes in to a show called Greeny. At least he was on it earlier today. The Warriors forward and four-time NBA champ. Things that this will not be the last time that we see Jimmy Butler in this version of the Miami Heat in the finals.
But you got to give him a lot of credit. You know, being, I don't know, a minute away from not even being.
What in the world? It was a pop-up kick.
The finals, I think it says a lot about them. And they've dealt with a lot of adversity. Miami will keep retooling and keep tinkering, and they'll continue to make big swings to get into the finals. After over and over and over, they just keep proving us wrong. They're going to keep making runs.
I am hopeful, obviously, as a Heat fan, because of this franchise as a whole. I'm hopeful because even though Jimmy Butler disappeared there, and I do think that there might be more going on with Jimmy, who knows? He certainly disappeared. This was not a good series for Jimmy Butler, and he does deserve some criticism because even if he's got the ankle injury, it's not an excuse. He's still out there playing. You saw him. He showed up to those last 3 minutes of Game 5. If you can show up to the last 3 minutes, hey, buddy, maybe show up 10 minutes before that because we desperately needed you. But I do believe in him. Certainly the Heat would not have been there without Jimmy Butler and his monster performances in the first couple series, in particular in this Eastern Conference run. But even more than Jimmy, you believe in the franchise as a whole. You believe in the idea of them retooling. They've done it time and time again, Joe, and there's no reason to count them out.
Yeah, Butler gets a pass. I know he didn't play great in the finals. He's clearly playing hurt. I mean, his numbers deteriorated throughout the season. He had a lot on his shoulders. He was the leader of the team. He got everyone fired up. He made big plays in big spots. Even if he had played huge in this series, is Miami still taking 4 out of 7? Let's ask ourselves that. The Heat were outgunned. And that's not necessarily to knock the Heat. A lot of teams would have been outgunned by this Nuggets team. You can't stop Jokic. All right? You can't stop him. His floor. There are guys that have a floor, like Klay Thompson, for example. And I love Klay Thompson as much as any player in the NBA. But Klay can have a really hot 35-point night, and then Klay can have one of the worst shooting nights you've ever seen in his entire life. That doesn't happen to Jokic. He is extremely high performance. His off nights are still 20-plus with a bunch of rebounds and a bunch of assists. So you're not stopping him. Murray can have an off night, but if you're trying to stop both of them, then you got to worry about Aaron Gordon, who stepped in. They're a worthy champion. They have a lot of weapons at their disposal.
Well, Michael Porter Jr. finally showed up in that series last night as well, so credit to him because he showed up when it mattered most there for the Nuggets. I mean, Jokic and Murray had off nights last night. That's the reality of it. They had off nights last night, at least as off as you can get. I mean, an off night for Jokic, 28 points, 16 rebounds, only 4 assists, though. So it's an off night, technically, for Jokic, and yet the Heat just didn't have the offense. to keep up with it all whatsoever. I would imagine that they will be looking this offseason to see if there is a way to correct that moving forward. But even if they don't, I mean, it's been remarkable that they've been in 2 NBA finals here over the last 4 years. Coming up next, is there a problem in Buffalo? We will get into the NFL. Joe and Amber is on ESPN Radio.
Joe and Amber, the podcast.
This episode is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah.
Great blocks.
But when you need to actually get away, there's Booking.com. You can choose from thousands of unique stays across the U.S., from hotels and beach houses to...
Why did you go left instead of going right instead of going left?
Whatever trip you want to take, lying on the beach, camping in nature, exploring new cities. Find your perfect place to stay. Booking.com. Booking.yeah.
No matter where you're headed, Citgo is a good place to start. Whether you're off to the ballpark,
Too many
or
interceptions.
amusement park, driving range or drive-in theater, Saturday morning soccer or Sunday brunch, Citgo top-tier tri-clean gasoline gets you where you're going and keeps your engine running cleaner and smoother along the way. Whether you're traveling near or far, when you start with Citgo, you're good to go.
Welcome to the new shape of electric. The Volvo C40 Recharge, our first fully electric crossover, designed to turn heads and make every impression count. The Volvo C40 Recharge features a sleek roofline, a leather-free interior, and a 360-degree camera. Contact your local retailer to learn more or visit volvocars.com/US. Some equipment optional.
We've been talking a lot of NBA. Certainly we've been talking a lot of NBA for weeks now, but there are still some interesting things happening in the NFL. Joe and Amber is presented by Progressive Insurance. A very interesting situation with the Buffalo Bills.
You're
Sean
fucking joking.
McDermott said to the press today that Stephon Diggs is not at the team's mandatory minicamp. Now, Stephon Diggs' agent had a different story entirely and said he was. Let's start with Sean McDermott, the Bills head coach.
Steph is not here. Everybody else is here at the current time.
How concerned are you about that?
Oh, very concerned. Yeah, very concerned. I'm not going to get into, and listen, I respect everyone's questions and what they want to know about our team. Right now, I'm not going to get into
No
that
one's
anymore.
surprised.
So we'll talk about practice. Happy to do that. Happy to answer those questions, and we'll move forward from there.
So he doesn't want to get into anything more there, Joe,
Lattimore.
but he was very clearly willing to make the press aware that he was concerned.
You know it's fake
that Stephon
because
Diggs wasn't there.
Debo
So
very
the
rarely
Bills
from
were a
the
5-6-win team like we remember from 5, 6, 7 years ago. And they were trying to take the step to 8 or 9 win team, maybe threaten for a wild card spot. This wouldn't be much of a story. Whatever, guy holding out, they'll try to figure it out. There's plenty of time between now and training camp opening and the start of the season. But the Bills aren't a 5 or 6 win team. The Bills are trying to win a Super Bowl. If you're going to win a Super Bowl, you got to be buttoned up. You got to be organized. You got to pay attention to the details. That doesn't mean Stephon Diggs should be happy. But what that means is that this story shouldn't be as weird as it is. McDermott says he's not there. Then there's a report from Diggs' agent that he is
yes,
in Buffalo.
Landry.
Then I believe McDermott comes out later and says, well, yeah, he's here, but he's not at practice. It shouldn't take that much to get this message across. You should be focused on your camp. You should be focused on improving. You should be focused on the guys who are there. He's not there, so be it. But there shouldn't be so many mixed messages here in terms of whether or not the guy is in Buffalo. That's a bad sign to me. You got to be more organized than that. You got to be able to figure out what you're doing and communicate it to the media or stiff arm them and move on. And for Diggs, he's a huge part of that offense. 156 targets last season, tied for 4th most in the NFL. He accounted for 30% of Josh Allen's completions, 33% of his passing yards, 31% of his passing touchdowns. If he's not going to be there this year, you need a plan B in a hurry, and I think we both know who that probably is.
Yeah, I mean, you are not winning a Super Bowl without Stephon Diggs. If you look at the current makeup, anyways, of that wide receiver room. No disrespect to Gabe Davis and Trent Sherfield and the other guys in that room, but let's be
Sherfield's not a Bill.
Diggs is the number one, and Josh Allen certainly needs his number one guy. But this story did go from bad to worse by just sort of it felt like the backtrack there from the Bills, right? Where you have McDermott, he doesn't just say, hey, he's not here, let's move on, like you suggested maybe he should have said, he's not here,
Alontae Taylor and Street.
He's not here, I'm quote-unquote very concerned. So obviously that's going to raise alarms. But then you have Diggs' agent, Adisa Bakari, telling our very own Adam Schefter that, in fact, his client is in Buffalo. He's been there since yesterday morning, according to Diggs' agent.
I got the door.
He said Diggs took his physical, met with Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane, the GM, the past couple days, and, quote-unquote, Diggs will be there for the entirety of minicamp. So that's what's coming out of Stephon Diggs' camp, that he is there. He's meeting with everybody, including Sean McDermott. So then the Bills come out, and they confirm after practice today.
Yeah, I mean, they're a tough team. I'm only up 3 right now.
Facilities on Monday and Tuesday, just like Diggs' agent said. However, he left before.
I hate having to eat my words.
And so that's when you then get the comments from Sean McDermott, well, he's not here, I'm concerned. Now it's weird because apparently he is there, and Sean McDermott originally made it sound like he's not there, even though Diggs' agent is telling us that they actually met. All of this feels like a lot of drama that should be not happening at this point in the offseason.
We are not that far removed. It was a year ago last April. That Diggs and the Bills came to terms on a 4-year extension with $104 million. So it's hard to think that this is financially related. I don't know, maybe he's one of these guys that just doesn't want to go through the workouts. And we see that every year. Certain guys, there's an issue, but they show up a couple weeks later because they don't want to go through the practices. Or maybe they're there and there's a hamstring injury, so it keeps them from going through the workout. But for McDermott to come out and say how concerned he is, it's got to be something interesting, because a $104 million 4-year extension just last year, to think it would be money. I mean, to think finances were driving this, I don't know. That would be a little bit alarming that you just gave him the bag and he's already upset a year later.
I can't imagine it. He just signed that deal. If you were to try to trade him now because he's disgruntled or unhappy or holding out, the Bills would incur a significant dead cap hit, including $13.2 million this year. So it's obvious that when he signs an extension with Buffalo, both Buffalo and Stephon Diggs think that he's going to be a Buffalo Bill for many more years, and that was the intention. I can't imagine this is about money, but what you did see is you did see him and Josh Allen at that final game there during the season. You saw the tension between them two on the sideline, where maybe there's some issue there, there's some disconnect between Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. That was that Bengals game in January where they were caught on the sidelines together. It seemed like Stephon Diggs was unhappy with Josh Allen. Now Josh Allen in practice today had a very different version of events. Here's the Bills quarterback.
Oh, I know internally we're working on some things, not football related, but Steph, he's my guy. Excuse me, I love him. He's a brother of mine. This does not work, what we're doing here, without him. We wish he was in here today and was out there on the field with us, and that's not the case, but I've got his back no matter what.
He's saying all the right things. It can't feel good if you're Josh Allen, if Stephon Diggs isn't showing up there.
Well, he's the face of this thing. He's the face of it. He's going to have to answer all these questions at every single turn, whether it relates to him or not. I thought it was also telling that Von Miller, who was only with the team just last year for the first year, but didn't even make it the whole year because he got hurt, Miller's even quoted as saying that he expected him to be at minicamp and that he was a bit surprised, which that's a bit telling, because if all these guys are thinking, yeah, we thought you were going to be here, that feels...
Ooh, what a cutback.
It's a surprise he's not there, and it's not a good surprise. Clearly there's something going on behind the scenes. So hopefully whatever it is for Buffalo, they get it all figured out.
They certainly need to get it all figured out. Yeah, Von Miller said, everybody will be here. I haven't been told otherwise. And certainly he expected Stephon Diggs to be at minicamp. He's not in terms of practice, even though he is reportedly around the facility. Stephon Diggs left that game against the Bengals, not just frustrated with his quarterback, but also refused to talk to the media. Maybe that frustration is carried over now as we head into the next NFL.
Let's go, Kamara with a tutty.
This episode is brought to you by Jack Link's Doritos and Flamin' Hot. Enter the next dimension of snacking with Jack Link's.
That's how you start off the second half. A good long drive, 2 minutes off the clock.
Jerky and meat snacks. When flavors this bold come together, a new taste experience is born. And Jack Link's Flamin' Hot original flavored meat snacks.
It's time for a reality check with Intel. Across social media and the news, deepfake videos are everywhere now. That's why Intel created the world's first real-time deepfake detection platform. Powered by fake catcher technology and Intel Xeon processors, this innovative...
fella had died and came back. Oh boy.
Truth. Learn more at intel.com/deepfake.
Game 5 of the Stanley Cup playoffs. You heard it there on the Sports Center update. Still scoreless right now in the first, Joe.
Still scoreless in the first, but a great nugget at a T-Mobile Arena tonight. Cassidy, the head coach of the Vegas Golden Knights, sent Jonathan Marchessault, Riley Smith, William Karlsson, Braden McNabb, and Shea Theodore out as his starting 5 for the first shift tonight. Anyone who follows the Knights knows those are 5 original Golden Knights from when the team started 5 seasons ago. This is their 6th season. These guys were all part of the original group. So Cassidy starting 5 original Golden Knights tonight, no matter how it plays out. That's just a fantastic way to start that.
I did see somebody holding up a sign in Vegas. I've waited 6 long years for this. I mean, it's quite a different story than the Denver Nuggets story. If the Golden Knights are able to win this thing, we'll see if the Florida Panthers, though, can try to make this series a little bit interesting. Let's sound on, sound off.
They said it, but what do they really mean?
What are you trying to say to us?
Sound on, sound off with Joe and Amber.
There's been a lot of talk about the aesthetics of Nikola Jokic and the Nuggets and their run to the NBA title this year. They're not interesting. Jokic, some will say, has no personality. The way that he plays the game,
Nobody cares.
I think is a little bit boring. But we did see some of Jokic's personality last night. He is maybe unintentionally hilarious, but he certainly is hilarious. Here's the Finals MVP after the game.
You said you were surprised that you didn't feel more. So I'm curious what you are feeling right now, and if you're looking forward to a parade coming up in Denver.
Men's parade. When is parade?
Thursday.
I need to go home. Okay.
James Steele.
Yeah, Joe, so what did you think about Jokic's reaction to, the parade being on Thursday?
I like the fact that he's honest. I like the fact that he's himself. I like the fact that he's not trying to be someone that we should all want him to be or force him into being. He is who he is. He showed up. He balled out. Now he wants to go home. And that's understandable. It's a long season. He played extraordinarily well. If he wants to chill, if this is who he is, who are we to criticize?
That was not what I wanted to do.
Always want to do this to everybody. Not everybody at every single turn. We try looking at things a different way. Maybe, just maybe, we'll find a little bit more peace and happiness in our own lives.
It's hilarious. I think that it adds to the whole mystique of Jokic, the fact that he cares so little. I mean, we've never seen a Finals MVP not care about winning an NBA Finals, and it feels like he doesn't care. Like, it feels like he's that great somehow without the same level of passion that everybody else seems to have about winning that award. Now, maybe this is just his personality, and maybe he does actually through and through so much, and we're just not going to get that emotion out of him. Who knows? But it's funny that it seems like he doesn't care about an NBA title. Do you think it's annoying to other players, though, Joe? Because the only thing I could imagine is in this business, right? Like, you and I are in a very, very competitive, very tough business. If somebody at the top of the business, like Stephen A. Smith or Reed, if those guys didn't care, like,
I cleaned the bathroom yesterday. I tried to use that bathroom upstairs last night. I did not sit on that toilet.
And if they didn't care about getting set whatever position, would you and I be annoyed because we don't get those same opportunities and we care so much?
Are we sure he doesn't care, or do you just assume because the way he acts towards it that he doesn't care?
Right, well,
he can care.
if they acted like they didn't care, they acted like they didn't care. They were like, whatever.
I don't know.
Would it be annoying?
I'll take it up with my close personal friend Stephen A. Smith on Thursday.
He certainly didn't care about the parade.
He is not interested in that parade at all. That's for sure. I just think he's different than what we're used to seeing in that spot. We're used to seeing crying and screaming and celebrating, and LeBron telling us that he wants his damn respect. And it's odd. It just becomes odd to us, the loud, obnoxious Americans, when someone else shows up and is like, yeah, it's cool. I just, I want to go home. I'm done. Work's over. Yeah. It's like, oh, that's not how we do things here, sir. That's going to be considered odd for us. No, it's all right. He is who he is.
It's a job to him. That's what it seemed like. It's a job to him, not the
perfect lane opening.
Typically of sports, but it's refreshing to see a guy who wants to be home and also very, very obviously loves his family so much. The aesthetic conversation surrounding Jokic continued on First Take this morning with JJ Redick and Joe's close personal friend, Stephen A. Smith.
We're happy for you.
Superstar with another dominant big man.
Me personally, I'm a Shaq guy in his prime. I know that I throw Kareem Abdul-Jabbar on the Mount Rushmore, but that's resume. But I think about Shaq in his prime, and I think about the level of domination as a big man, and that's just my preference. But I look at Jokic and the numbers.
Let's go.
I just can't. There's no denying that, and I'll give him credit.
And he was selling it too. That's how you feel a computer. Let's go. Hit the selly.
Change the conversation to make it about dominance. Because I think I want to bring this up. Because no. We had this conversation last week.
Ankle breaker.
There's a lot of confusion to me. I believe this. There's a lot of confusion to me with aesthetics.
They did it late though, but
when you talk about dominance. Because you comparing Shaq and Jokic skill-wise, that's not even a fair comparison for Shaq. Like, Jokic has him in spades. Like, that's not even a thing. So then you want to talk about dominance, and I think the physicality of Shaquille O'Neal, right, he was one of one. Jokic dominates the game as well, just in a very different way. And it's aesthetics. It's not about effectiveness. So your thing with Shaq is like, oh, he's so dominant. Well, so is Jokic.
So, Stephen A. again, that's Joe's close personal friend, says he prefers Shaq. JJ Redick says Jokic is just as dominant as Shaq, just different. Amber, would you rather have Jokic or prime Shaq?
Well, he's not as dominant defensively as Shaq, but he's more dominant because he's far more skilled offensively than Shaq was, right? I mean, Shaq was the traditional big man that we think of, whereas Jokic is doing things at almost 7 feet tall that was unimaginable 20 years ago. The skills he possesses. No, I think Jokic, I don't want to be that person, because what we tend to do in these situations, Joe, is we tend to be the people that go with whatever our era was, right? Like, we go with our age, the players that we saw when we were growing up. We always have this idea of that they were better than today's players that we're witnessing well into our adult years. I don't want to be that person. Jokic is absolutely phenomenal. He's more skilled, so no, I'm not willing to have that conversation. I'll just sound old. I'll just sound like I'm dating myself. And the only reason I would even choose Shaq in that conversation would be, again, because of that era for me, which isn't a fair reason to choose.
I like the fact that you bring that up, because we don't want to be called prisoners of the moment. Like, it's so easy to get caught up in what we just watched and then discount everything we've seen in the past. I guess except for when it's the Jordan LeBron debate, and then the past obviously gets weighted very heavily. But I'd say this, there's no such thing as hack a Jokic. You didn't have an easy way of getting Jokic off the floor. With Shaq, you could just keep fouling him, send him to the free throw line. He couldn't knock those shots down, and suddenly you could neutralize him at least a little bit. Now, Shaq was a much better defender than Jokic, but the fact that there is a hack-a-Shaq technique that can neutralize how dominant he could be, just to an extent, a small extent, it's worth bringing up, because it's not like you can pull that off against Jokic.
Oh, boy, did the NBA miss. I mean, what could have been a flagrant last night when he elbowed the heck out of Bam. Jokic gets away with a whole lot. That's all I'm saying. We talked about the state of the Western James, stop shaking your head at me. I'm not trying to sound like a sore loser. I'm just saying Jokic does get away with a whole lot of contact. We talked about the state of the Western Conference earlier and teams that could take down the Nuggets next year. Four-time NBA champ Andre Iguodala was on Greeny earlier today and said he expects the Warriors to be one of those teams.
It's going to be an interesting summer already because of one of the key pieces, step down, Bob Myers. You know, you got the draft coming up, get a new GM in there. And that's one interesting, but I think, you know, you've got a very competitive group, and you can never, ever count out that team with Steve Kerr. It's just, you know, trying to tinker around how do you make it all work and bring the group.
Iguodala said he was retiring end of this year, so it was Udonis has him.
Jokic gets beat up.
Oh, please, beat up. Beat up.
All right.
The man's arms be bleeding after games.
He's 17,000 pounds. Nobody believes Jokic is getting beat up.
The man has bloody arms after every game. What you mean, Amber?
You expect the Warriors to be legit contenders next season, or did the dynasty end with their loss to LeBron and Lakers in the playoffs?
So there's two ways to answer that where I can kind of just use the wording. I think the dynasty's over, but I also
Just mistimed the animation to block it.
So I don't think you want me dancing around.
Anything you need me to help you with?
Anytime Steph Curry's on your team, you're a contender.
I get it.
You know I love helping.
This is just for in the morning.
Oh yeah.
But when I transfer her, I use the bag to him. We use the bag, and it's easier for him to slide off the bed, so I had to bring some.
Oh, you
take
actually.
some new bags because the bags you got is
Oh, you have to actually physically use bags to lift it.
Kuminga and Moody aren't coming around the way they had hoped. Jordan Poole had a disastrous situation.
Oh, come on.
It doesn't look
It's
that
like
good
that in
from a
summer,
personnel
too, depending on where you
standpoint.
go.
They're a playoff team, but I don't know if they're a serious threat.
No.
They have a good coach, and they have Steph Curry. And those two things still exist.
I don't blame him.
So I won't completely count them out.
I just sprayed down ours.
Else Joe just said is
Oh, I do that one. Oh, that was a bad look. That was a bad read.
I think around Steph Curry. We'll see if they can do it, but I would imagine it is absolutely a reason that Bob Myers stepped down. Coming up next here on Joe and Amber, we aren't stepping down, not yet. We are opening up the phone lines to you, AAA, say ESPN. We'd love when you join the conversation. Jokic or Shaq? What about the Nuggets? Is this
I got the ball back. Let's go. What are you, Ziller?
Contenders every year in the West? What do you see as the future for the Miami?
Somehow I got it, and I somehow kept my feet in bounds.
888-729-3776.
Yeah, no question.
The phone lines are open here on
Joe and Amber, the podcast.
EA Sports Super Mega Baseball 4 is where the legends play.
Super Mega
Step
Baseball.
onto the field with all-stars Vladimir Guerrero, Johnny Damon, Ozzie Smith, and Jason Giambi. Immerse yourself in new visuals and crystal-clear audio from the dugout to the bleachers. With 6 new stadiums, an entire lineup of fan-requested features, and expanded cross-gen and cross-platform multiplayer, see why Super Mega Baseball 4 is where the legends play. Visit supermegabaseball.com. Rated E for everyone.
This Epical Health product. Azo Complete Feminine Balance helps
Get off me.
good bacteria. And if you want protection from yeast and urinary tract issues, try it. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Angie's List is now Angie's, and we've heard a lot of theories about why.
I thought it was an eco move. Your words?
Must be a tech thing.
But those aren't quite right. It's because now you can compare upfront prices, book a service instantly, and even get your
Nah, I don't know how people eat that stuff.
Sounds easy. It is, and it makes us
I know, I'm just saying.
Get started at Angie.com. That's ANGI. Or download the app today.
Phone lines are open here on Joe and Amber. If you want to join the conversation, 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. We will be getting to your phone calls in just a moment. Golden Knights scored. They are up now. Scored shorthanded. They are up 1-0 over the Florida Panthers in game 5.
I got an update on your update. It's 2-0 Golden Knights now.
Oh, goodness. Now it's 2-0. I'm refreshing, too, every second. I don't have the game on in front of me, but I'm refreshing. It hasn't even come through yet. Now it's 2-0 Golden Knights. This is going about as well for South Florida as last night went for South. So this is a happy time.
That Florida power play unit has been atrocious in this series. The Vegas penalty kill was average at best. Florida hasn't scored a single power play goal in the entire series, and they just gave up another shorthanded goal to start the game to go down 1-0, now down 2-0. Unbelievable.
things
but still,
aren't
another
looking
great
good.
season for them. I mean, they were down 3-1 against the Bruins in the opening round.
I know, but nobody wants to, right, and they did, and they came all the way back. It took them OT to do it. Nobody wants to hear that, though, right? I mean, it's even like with the Heat, like, I didn't really want to have the conversation about, like, oh, great season.
What? You overthrew him?
Heat Twitter immediately after the game.
Are
And
you
I get
serious?
it. It was a hell of a season and an unexpected run, and the Heat deserve all the credit for it. But just in the immediacy of the loss, I just wasn't ready to have that feel good, happy loser conversation yet. I feel similarly right now about the Florida Panthers. Okay, so, and the game's not even over. We'll see what Florida can do. You just mentioned it. They did it against the Boston Bruins. Miracles can happen. Let's play some Call of Duty.
13 black odd, no winner.
Spin the wheel,
Let's do it again.
it's a game of chance.
Let's play Call of Duty.
With Join Ever.
To be in an NBA Finals and a Stanley Cup Finals and to not get a championship out of either of those, so unbelievably disappointing. But hey, we got Messi, so there's that. Let's spin the wheel. Brad is in the Bay Area. Go ahead.
Hey, so thanks for taking my call. I was listening to you guys on my way home, and and I got into this Jokic versus Shaq.
Dang it, I wanted to return that one.
Jokic is Jokic, and Shaq is Shaq. I don't want to ruin Jokic as a comparison. I think I thought he was super versatile in his own way, and Shaq did his thing in his own way. So I could really feel like when someone compares those two, it's kind of like weird, because I think the games were different, and the style of the game this decade is totally different from the 99 time.
Yeah, Brad, that is a fair criticism. I mean, the tacky thing that we do here on sports radio is compare all of these guys across eras. And Joe, that always drives me crazy about it too, because the reality is that greatness can exist in multiple eras. Both of those guys were great. They have different skill sets. Shaq certainly defensively gets the edge. Jokic, skill-wise, and what he does offensively, I mean, it's a new wave version of a center. Though we didn't see those guys do those things in Shaq's day.
It's also I don't want to use the word like discriminatory, but it's not really fair to the older generations to stack them up against the new guys who get to load manage. They deal with better technology, better research in terms of how to exercise, how to rest, how to get sleep,
ankle breakers.
Like right now, you have an incredible amount of resources at your disposal.
Time to be
dudes
the
in the
fullback.
80s, 70s, 60s didn't have. They just didn't have that. So things could have been different if those guys were given the same opportunity.
And
I
it's
was trying
not
to go
just
deeper
that.
on the
It's
angle
also
or out, but
who you see doing it ahead of you, right? Like you see Steph Curry with the three-point shooting, and then you're the little kid growing up at 5 years old, and all of a sudden that's the shot that you're working on over and over again.
ankle
you
breaker.
see now Jokic doing what he
I
does
should
at
make
almost
my
7
fullback an
feet tall. If
extractor.
you're the kind of, maybe a little pudgy, huge 7 foot tall kid growing up, you're seeing that dude and what he can do skill-wise, and you're not going to let them put you in a box at that center position, and you're going to go outside and shoot. You're going to assist, and you're going to do all the things
That's
that
green.
he does in his game. So there's that advantage as well, that you're seeing these guys
the fullback
blaze
and
the
roll for
path
a
for you
tutty.
and create a whole new way of playing the game. Let's spin it.
Yes, sir.
Robert is in Virginia. Hey, Robert, thanks for the call. You're on with Joe and Amber. Go ahead.
Well, thank you. I tell you what, this Jokic guy, you usually see like replays and a little bit, but watching him for a whole game, this guy does so many things well. I think he's by far the best big man in the game today, bar none.
What?
And I tell you what, as long as he's healthy, they're going to be a top contender. I mean, this guy, he keeps on the outside, he passes well, he's unselfish, and he's strong as a bull. I mean, he gets hit hard and doesn't face his guy. On him. I think he, and then with that Gordon guy and the guard that shoots so well, that's going to be a really good team next year.
Yeah, thanks for the call. The Denver Nuggets certainly aren't going anywhere. Those guys, their core is locked up under contract for quite some time. And they've got a great coach, and now they've got the championship pedigree. When it comes to Jokic, one thing I have seen out of this series, because I do feel like Denver wasn't really getting the respect all season that frankly they deserved there as the top seed in the West, Joe. And Jokic, as a dude who had won back-to-back MVPs, it almost felt like he wasn't getting the respect that he deserved. I feel like now
she went to
every
that place.
person I hear from says Jokic is the best player in the league. Certainly the best big man in the game. Most people say best player in